And please let's do well to mute ourselves, all right, so that we can achieve the goal for this Q&A session. Okay, my name is Akio Montesho. I live in the United Kingdom, and then I'm a Ptdf scholar. All right, I got my Ptdf scholarship in 2021, August 13, August 13 or August 14, I believe it was a Saturday. All right, I got a mail that I was selected for the Ptdf Overseas Scholarship. Okay, and I believe that you guys are almost at that stage. This is the final stage, really. Now, in terms of what you should expect at the interview, it's pretty much going to be a less than 5 minutes quota for each and every one of you in your respective centers. And that's because you're going to have like tons of people who would also or who would also be interviewed, you know, in that period. Okay, so it's going to be a 5 minutes, roughly 5 minutes interview with about 3 to 4 panelists. Again, it depends on, you know, timing, and then it depends on the location as well. So all these variables can change. So I'm not saying it's a fixed interview structure, as it were. Okay, now basic things for the interview is make sure all your documents are ready. Okay, make sure your documents are ready. All the documents you used all the documents you used while you were applying for the scholarship, make sure that you have all of them. Okay, if you have the original, that's pretty much fine, but also make photocopies of those documents. Sorry, 1 second. So again, before I continue, I understand that this meeting is not a premium user meeting, in the sense that we can have this Zoom session for a very long period of time. I think we have about 30 to 40 minutes slots. So please, if this meeting times out, all right, please just do well to rejoin again. Okay, and then like I mentioned earlier, we try to make this meeting as brief as possible. Okay, so back to what I was saying in terms of the documents, make sure you have all your documents ready. All right, make sure you have the photocopy, all right, your YX certificate, your bachelor's degree certificate, your transcripts, and every other professional certificates that you included as part of your application. That's one basic thing. Now, if you've watched my previous video, one of the things I've mentioned is the fact that, as it were, Ptdf is a point-based system. Okay, point-based system in the sense that there are a number of criteria they look at, okay, to then determine who gets selected for the scholarship. So I want to encourage you, don't be intimidated by the people you see during the interview. All right, even if the person has a first class, has everything, you know, it's a point-based system. Different criteria, like different scoreboard that they then total. Now, also don't forget that because it's a national scholarship, there's also the quota per state. Okay, every state is going to be represented, you know, in the final selection of awardees. So don't zero yourself off already. Okay, maybe you even made a mistake during the application process. All right, and all of that. Don't zero yourself off. Okay, you never can tell. Okay, and I'm hopeful that all of you, or most of you, if not all of you, get selected for the, you know, Ptdf Overseas Scholarship. Because I remember during my time, with the tons of people I saw, I just did the interview just for doing sake. Really, it wasn't like I was exactly sure that I was going to be selected for the Ptdf Scholarship. So I want to encourage you, all right, just be open, just be open-hearted, really. All right, make sure you've crossed your T's and you've dotted your I's when it comes to the questions, which I'm still going to talk about in this Q&A session as well. All right, make sure you've done that. Afterwards, just leave everything and then trust that you will be selected for the Ptdf scholarship. Okay, so I've mentioned about the documents. Make sure you have all the documents. They'll probably ask you for your YX certificate. So I remember one of the things that happened during my own time. Again, a bit of caveat is that all these things can change over time, really. So I remember like the last Q&A session I had with people, I remember telling them that they shouldn't pick the virtual interview options, okay, because that was available last year. I understand that that is no longer available again. All right. From what I've heard from some of you guys, that is no longer available. And I think I'm pretty much happy about that because, like I mentioned in those previous Q&A sessions, uh, because of the caliber of people that would interview you, most of them probably don't even know, excuse me, surprisingly, how to even operate a computer. So for a lot of people who chose the virtual option, um, you know, they had a lot of disadvantage, whether it's a network issue in Nigeria or it is a person saying, I can't hear you, mute yourself or mute yourself or what have you. All right. So again, understand that this Q&A session is supposed to provide just a bit of, insight into what you should expect. All right. Um, I mean, your own experience might be different. That's why for some of you that probably checked, other Ptdf scholars as well, also on YouTube, their own approach might be different from mine. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that one person is wrong or one person is right. Would oftentimes they're not tend to answer questions based on our own experience. Okay, that's the reason for that caveat. All right, but however, I believe that what we're going to share on this platform would still help you, and even beyond the interview. All right, if you have question maybe around the scholarship, okay, when I get the scholarship, what's going to happen, etc., etc., I'll take my time to answer that question as well. um Hopefully, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to have a Q&A session with the final awardees. All right, I'm hopeful. So please, if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel, all right, please subscribe. I'm going to put out a notification if I'm going to be having a Q&A session with you guys. Okay, so I've talked about the documents part. All right. Of course, the basic interview guidelines: arrive there early, dress corporate. That's the only chance that you have to sort of impress the people that would actually choose whether you will be selected. So of course, don't overdress, have like funny color combinations. That's not what I mean, but dress corporate. Okay, dress corporate, get tidied up, make sure you're well settled. Okay, if you're traveling outside of your state, make sure you factored all contingency. All right, that there is no, oh, maybe your bus stopped on the way and all of that. Make sure you factor that in. If it's something you can arrive maybe a day before, depending on your location, I would encourage you. It's just something that is worth it, really. And you're going to get return on investment anyway. This is a fully funded scholarship. Like from the point at which you get your scholarship, your tuition fee, your living expenses, your travel expenses, flight tickets, tuberculosis test certificate, everything is going to be covered by the fund. So you want to make sure that, see, this is the only chance I have to get to impress, the interviewers. So I'll better just get it right that once. Okay. So that's about the basic interview guidelines. And so the questions they're going to ask you. Now, the questions they're going to ask you is, there are various type of questions they can ask you. But I like to just, when I speak with people who are going for interview, I like to just tell them that make sure you've mastered your personal statement. Oftentimes than not, the kind of questions they would ask you would stem from what you have in your personal statement. Okay, so your academic qualifications, you want to make sure that you know a lot about that. Okay, the courses you did back for your bachelor's. If you're going for the PhD program, you want what's your master's um, degree, what's your first is like. Okay, you want to like provide like a bit of explanation. Okay, um, again, you want to check the trends, all right, that are happening in Nigeria at the moment in your respective field. Okay, because like I said, questions can really digress into what the economic situation in Nigeria is, especially in your respective field. So you want to make sure that you've done your research, okay? So master your personal statements, like master it properly. What school did you choose? Why did you choose that type of school? Why the country you selected? And a number of potential questions that would arise from your personal statement. So please, once again, go over your personal statements in depth. Okay, go over your personal statement in depth. If it's possible, you can do an interview mock session for yourself. maybe you have a third party or friend or family who can just sort of interview you, even from your personal statement. You want to make sure that you simulated how the interview is actually going to go. Again, some people might be very lucky, they don't ask them any technical question. You might be very lucky, okay, but again, there is no one size fits all interview question. So please master your personal statement and also make sure that you know what the trend is as far as Nigeria is concerned in your respective field. Again, you also want to make sure that you know what the PTDF really stands for. And please, under no circumstance should you paint a picture that I am going outside of the country to Jackpot. All right. It doesn't speak well, because I'm sure all of you should be aware that typically you're supposed to return back to Nigeria and then contribute, to the Nigerian oil and gas economy. Okay. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will come back, you would exactly come back to Nigeria, but you just want to make sure that you've captured the essence of PTDF's objective, all right, which is to train Nigerians, okay, in the oil and gas field, the different parts of the oil and gas field. And then these scholars are coming back to Nigeria to contribute to the oil and gas economy. All right. So you want to make sure that all your answers revolve around, PTDF's objective, and then you having to come back. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, and I'll use myself as a case study, I didn't have to come back to Nigeria. All right. I stayed back in the UK, right? So there's a lot of option for that. Okay. So you don't want to, if they're asking you why are you going outside, say, Nigeria is bad or whatever. That doesn't speak well. Now, another advice I give to scholars is that, like, be free. All right. Tell your story. Storytelling is actually beautiful when it comes to interview. Like, in fact, there's a way you can talk more about yourself that really the interviewer just falls in love with you, really, and it's like, oh, this is really nice. Like, I've had people that's worked for. Okay, make sure you're telling a story, not that they're asking you a question and you're like, yes, no, yes, no. Of course, there are questions that would warrant that, but any question that would give you the opportunity to express yourself, like express yourself passionately. Okay, let them see that passion, let them see that drive in you, whether it's in terms of your previous experience, whether it's in terms of your volunteering and all of that. Let them see that passion, let them see that, yes, this person is an asset to PTDF. Let them see that, oh, it's going to even be a privilege for us to be able to sponsor this person's, master's or PhD program. Okay, all right. So that these little things would be the differentiating factor among the tens of thousands of people they are going to interview. And you also want to make sure that you leave a good memory, all right, to your interviewer. Okay, so I would end it on that note in terms of what you should expect. That's pretty much what you should expect, for the interview. So please, if you have questions, I know more people are joining, so welcome, everyone. More people are joining just now. So if you have questions, just signify by raising up your hands electronically, and excuse me, I would answer your question, or I would call you. Then you can unmute yourself, ask your question, and then I would answer. So let's flow on that note. If you have any question from what I've mentioned, just now, please just signify by raising up your hand. Don't unmute yourself first, so that we can have a bit of order, in the meeting. Again, just to reiterate what I mentioned, this meeting is not or this Zoom session is not for a premium user. It's just basic Zoom meeting, which I think lasts about 30 to 40 minutes. So please, if this meeting times out for any reason, just try and rejoin the meeting, okay, using the same link. I think we should be able to work with that. All right, Francis Adedeji, please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ake. I really appreciate that session. Now, concerning the point-based system, I don't know if you can actually outline like the major points. I know I've watched a couple of videos. I just want to just outline the major points there. Then maybe from them we'll ask other questions on it. Secondly, I want to ask about when you talk about PTDF training Nigerians for the oil and gas industry. Now, when you mean oil and gas industry, now I want to understand it. It was it that PTDF itself as runs an oil and gas company, or they just fund Nigerians to go and learn for oil and gas company. So when you come back and return, Is it that they actually have complaints they are going to work in, or is more like NMPC, Total Energy can work for this particular complaints? Is it oil and gas generally as in Nigeria, like working for Dangote and stuff like that, or they have their own sector that actually also have their own oil and gas sector? So I actually want to understand that. I think after that, I think I can have that question, but that's my questions for now. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Francis. So to your first question, what I mean by a point-based system is that, so when you get to the interview, all right, like I mentioned, they would ask for a number of your documents. And this is something I've seen them do. So during my interview, when I submitted my WIC certificate, they sort of asked me to pick like my top 5 subjects on that, whatever, on that exam result, of course, including math and English. So what I discovered was that where I had A, they wrote 5 in their notes, where I had B, I think they wrote something like 4, C, something like 3, and all of that. So where your WIC or your O-level qualification is concerned, you can score 10, depending, you can score 12 and all of that. Now, when it comes to your bachelor's qualification as well, so somebody who has a first class would typically score, I don't know, I'm just giving you a typical example, maybe 5, somebody who scored 214, somebody who has a 223. That's what I mean by a points-based system. Somebody who has a research qualification would probably score higher as far as that criteria is concerned. Will probably score higher than the person who doesn't have a publication. Now, all this would eventually be aggregated. So you can't say because one person scored higher than you in a particular, factor, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person will be selected for the PTDF scholarship while you wouldn't be. Okay, that's what I mean by being a point-based system. Okay, I hope that is clear. All right, so you don't bother your mind as to the scoring. Okay, what you're simply doing is that you're putting your best foot forward. That's just basically what you're doing. All right, leave them to figure out who will be selected, for the PTDF scholarship. And that's why I'm saying that the 5 minutes you get, make sure you impress them. Now, I'm not saying don't do over sabi, you're trying to now school your interviewer. Some people can be very funny. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying be yourself, share your own story, and make sure it aligns with PTDF's objective. Okay, once you've done that, basically, I think you're good to go. Now, for your second question, so PTDF is a Nigerian government agency, so they don't have a specific, all right, of course, they would have affiliations, with the oil and gas industry, stakeholders, all right, but it's not like when you're back, from your studies, they would then slot people into an NPC, into Mobile, Chevron and all of that. No, they are not going to do that. Okay, what they just, I think is just, okay, I'm seeing on my timeline that we have 10 minutes, to the first, what's it called? So please do want to rejoin after 10 minutes, okay? So back to what I was saying. So basically, they don't have any specific oil and gas company that they want to slot you in, all right? It's just that they have decided that we would focus on oil and gas. And of course, as you would know, that Nigeria is a big player in the oil and gas industry globally as well. Okay, so that's just their own objective. All right. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you would have to. Sorry, can that person mute? John Frank, can you please mute yourself? All right, thank you. I mean, that just started my flow of thought. So, when it comes to the oil and gas industry, it doesn't mean that you have to work with those oil and gas industry. So I'll give you an example. Back when I was in Nigeria, I worked with KPMG. All right, KPMG is an accounting firm, but I did a lot of work in the oil and gas sector for my clients. So it doesn't mean that I'm working directly in the oil and gas space, but somewhat I have a contribution to the oil and gas industry. Do you understand that? So don't look at it in such a way that, oh, if I don't have core oil and gas, or if I've not mentioned Chevron or whatever, then I don't have any contribution to the oil and gas industry. No. In your respective space, respective career path or discipline, they want to see that, oh, even if you don't have that exact contribution at the moment, they want to see that when you come back, to Nigeria, that you're going to make that contribution to the oil and gas industry in your own respective way. So I hope that is clear. Ahmad Ibrahim, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening, sir. It's nice
Hi.
to have you here.
Hi.
Really appreciate this kind of lecture. My question, sir, is on statement of purpose. During the application, I didn't state that I'm doing ICANN because I don't have the certificate already. I'm just doing it. I'm in skill level now. But during the interview, should I state that one? And secondly, based on my SOP, I didn't state anything concerning oil and gas or the university I want to go or the country I want to attend for my education. But when they give us these 2 days of grace to edit such kind of thing, I was able to highlight those parts of oil and gas and the university I want to go. Thank you, sir.
All right. So first of all, for your question, so I know you mentioned you're in the skills level of ICANN. Do you have an ATS certificate?
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah, that's fine. You can mention it. It doesn't change anything. Okay. What it just simply shows is that you're on a pathway to achieving a professional certification. Okay. Even though you already don't have that, but again, that adds value to your statement of purpose or to your story. Okay, that okay, yes, I don't have this, but I'm on the pathway to achieving it. So if the conversation goes towards that line, you can chip it in. It doesn't change anything anyway. All right. It's better for me to know that you are writing ICANN, okay, than for me to know that you're not writing anything. Do you understand? It doesn't really change anything. So I'd encourage you to chip it in. Okay. Um, that goes to everybody as well. The fact that you've not achieved something yet. If, for example, you're trying to publish a paper and your paper hasn't been published yet, you can also mention that, oh, I'm currently working on a research publication along X and X area. This is what I have done. I mean, if the interviewer picks an interest in it, you can have a conversation, and that can even give the interviewer a better impression about you. Okay, so don't zoom in on only the things you've achieved, even the things you are still trying to achieve. You can also include that as part of your, interview answers, to the question. Okay. Secondly, is that what you have in your personal statement is already what you have in your personal statement. Nothing can really change. Okay. What you now want to focus on is that the things you felt like you omitted in the personal statement. Okay. Um, you have answers to it. So regardless, I would expect you that the schools you've picked, okay, as far as the application is concerned, and the courses you've picked, those um them already, and then you can provide a rationale as to why you chose that. All right. I would assume a basic question they would ask is that why this country? Why this course? Why this university? So you want to provide like a very good answer. So don't just say, I'm going to use a UK school, for example. I chose Imperial College because it's in London. Like that just doesn't make any sense, really. You want to say, oh, the reason why I picked this course is because maybe there's an additional course that would be offered as part of the program that is not being offered in any other school, or maybe there's a link to the industry players, just something more specific. You can afford to provide general answers to your questions or to the questions you're being asked. You want something more specific, really, like why did you choose this course? Or, you know, say for example, you experienced so and so while you were growing up, that further forward your passion along these areas, something more specific. Okay. Now, whatever you wrote in your personal statement, just leave it. That one is gone already. You can't really change it. Yes, they might print your personal statement and use that one to ask you questions, but the ones you felt like you omitted, still chip it in as part of your answers, to the question. So I hope that answers your question. Simon, I believe. Please go ahead. Simon, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, that's actually pronounced correctly. My name is Simon. Okay, so first, I want to appreciate you for this opportunity, actually. Thank you very much for your efforts. I've been following your previous videos on YouTube, and as God will have it, I got selected this time. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So, all right, my first question is this. I have two questions actually. My first question is this. All right. Um, while I was writing my personal statement, and I actually made a lot of references to oil and gas and all that. I discovered that you actually answered some of the questions I had, so I wouldn't overflog that. But basically, in my choice of universities and country, I noticed that after choosing those universities and submitted the applications, I now went back to try and see if I can secure admission in those universities and actually the course. One of which I discovered that the university doesn't really have that course, and it was actually part of the list that Ptdf gave in their options. So how do you handle something like that? Is it possible to just change to an entirely different course, an entirely different university, or how do you handle such?
All right. Thank you. And congrats this time on being selected for the interview. All right.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, basically you can pick any other course. So the focus primarily is that the university you're picking, first of all, is an approved university. All right, in your country of choice. Okay. Say for example you pick the UK, and let's say your top three is Robert Gordon, University of Edinburgh. I mean, I'm not sure if it's part of the approved school, but you've picked the three approved schools. All right, as far as your application is concerned. Now, when it comes to your interview, still focus on what you have in your application. However,
Okay.
there is a flexibility for you to choose any other approved school, okay, regardless of what is on your application, form or whatever, right? And that's because when you've been awarded a scholarship, there's a separate scholarship portal where you can then choose that, okay, after all this process, after reaching out to all the schools, this is the school I have decided to go to. Now, if it is